relation to the other one, but I love his work. And before you ask, yes, my name really is Mars. I chose it, I love it, and part of why I chose it is because I'm a huge mythology fan, especially mythological men. They're so strong and completely chaotic in a way I aspire to be. I mean, they can change their gender, change their species even, and everyone just shrugs and is like, oh, what a silly goose! Like, yes, he literally turned himself into a goose because he thinks that's irresistible to women. Very silly. But, from the divine to the ridiculous, I am now presenting... I was a teenage reptilian. I know some of you are scared right now. And you should be. I too am deathly afraid of teenagers. But be not afeared, ladies, gadies, and ladies, for everything you are about to see on the stage tonight is 100%. You know, like how Disney's Mulan is based on a true story? Yeah. Except my trans coming of age has a lot more intent and a lot less swordplay. Never zero. But the battle to be queer and trans and Jewish and strange in this hateful world made me who, or what I am today, and I would like to share that with you all. That's right. I'm finally coming out! Feel free to tell me how brave I am after the show. I get it a lot. You know, as a kid, gender was really just a role to play around with, which a lot of adults still don't seem to understand. I mean, you're learning how legs work, bones fall out of your face at random, kids have way bigger fish to fry than gender expectations. That was the case for my childhood at least, and I was not a kid that long ago. Yeah, I was pretty much only given one gender option growing up, and to give you a hint, my entire childhood bedroom was bright bubblegum pink! Of course, I loved it, because with the sun coming in through the window, that was the next best thing to a heat lamp. And now that I've embraced my lizard identity, I quite proudly live under a rock. By the way, who's president this time? You know what, don't answer that. But as conversations in the adult world around gender progress, we finally started to give kids the same grace. Take toys, for instance. I was a teenager by the time Target decided to stop gender segregating their toy section. Now the miniature AR-15s come in blue and pink, as God intended. But really, isn't it wonderful how toys can express a kid's hopes, dreams, who they're going to become? My favorite toy was a fairy. Yeah, very telling in hindsight. Actually, that's a bit of a lie. My favorite toy was a Monster High doll. Does anyone else remember these? Yeah! They took these classic movie monsters, turned them into teen fashionistas. And something about them just spoke to me, something I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it was because all of the normal dolls marketed to girls were far more fantastical. I mean, statistically, I was more likely to turn out a creature from the Bratz Lagoon than a CEO astronaut Barbie. You are closer to vampirism than you are to any billionaire. Turns out they're owned by the same company, but you know, April is not ready to dismantle capitalism. I'm still working on that, actually. But the point is, in 1,000 little ways growing up, I was told that I didn't belong, that I was monstrous. Those dolls gave me hope, because if I was a monster, at least I was fabulous. And then, one morning, BAM! Puberty kidnapped me and planned to hold me hostage for the next 6 to 8 years. Health class did not cover that part. Then again, most of my public school's health curriculum was watching reruns of the reality prank show, What Would You Do? Or anything, come to think of it. Unless John Quinones was lurking in the shadows with hormones the whole time! Yeah, given the state of the American healthcare system, I would not be surprised. But first puberty was a lot like a 2000s reality show in that it was surprising, deeply unpleasant, and documented on the internet forever. What more could you want? Like most kids, I had mood problems, I had skin problems, and I had 2 absolutely massive problems. But to honor the great tradition of my Jewish ancestors, even more greatly reformed by my other Jewish ancestors, I decided to mark the transition from girl to, we'll get to that, with a bat mitzvah. The only issue was at the ripe old age of 12, I was a cynical atheist. The tougher my life got, the harder it was for a 4,000-year-old religion to give me answers that didn't involve shearing sheep. So, a year out from my bat mitzvah, I just gave up altogether. God did not seem to care one way or the other. My parents, they definitely did. So, calling on another great tradition of our Jewish ancestors, we argued. But finally we reached a compromise. I would do the religious ceremony very seriously, but I got to choose the music for the reception. It was very kind of them, and in hindsight, a big mistake. Because again, I was a godless, cynical indie boy, which meant that now our family-friendly bat mitzvah party was chock full of the most angst-ridden and depressing emo songs. There was about as much moshing as a group of 12-year-olds can muster, which is, not much, gotta say. I still remember my mom was livid. The dance floor wasn't full. You chose this music, she said. You are gonna dance to it. And I did choose that music, but not to dance. No, I had one very specific purpose in mind. Soundtracking homoerotic sword fights. I told you there was swordplay. But it's true, I'd gotten about 100 rainbow-colored swords and passed them out amongst the guests right before dessert, so we could have a nice good-natured brawl over cake. I had finally become Mars, bringer of war! But I loved it. I wouldn't have changed a second of it, because if my ceremony gave me my womanhood, my reception returned it to the store without a receipt. Because I knew I wasn't a woman even then. And oddly enough, it was my Jewish ancestry that led me to that conclusion. See, most major religions, especially store-brand American Christianity, they just give you the answers and expect you to believe it, and that's that. But since the dawn of time, the Jewish people have been arguing amongst themselves about the answer. And when they couldn't pick one, just pass down the argument instead. So the leap from spiritual questioning to gender questioning, not as far as you might think. So I'd also played enough roles on stage, man, woman, and diabolical creature, to figure out the difference between the costume and the real thing. And from my very first training bra, I knew my body might perform womanhood, but my brain wanted a recast. One day I decided to try explaining this to my mom. Let's call this coming out 1.0. I still remember she said to me, just because you don't feel like a woman doesn't mean you aren't a woman. Yes! Of course I was a woman. We had the whole fucking bat mitzvah. The issue was I had tried it and did not want to continue that way. But that is many therapy sessions worth of hindsight talking. Back then, all I knew was the slam of the closet door and the feeling I was somehow monstrous. So my parents didn't have answers for me. American public schools certainly wouldn't. Like most tourist Zoomers, I went to the internet. And every internet rabbit hole I went down pointed to one group lurking in the shadows, leading secret double lives. But since I'd already discovered the ancient secrets of the Jews, not very helpful. The ancient secret, by the way, very pungent recipes. Yeah, I think that's why the survival of the Jewish people has been so mysterious to the goyim for so long. I mean, take the Middle Ages. You've got plague running rampant throughout Europe, and the best Christian doctors are convinced bad smells cause disease. And here's a group of people eating nothing but horseradish, onions, smoked fish, everything, and they're perfectly healthy. Never mind that half of our holy book is a self-help guide on hygiene and food prep, but no, Jesus does not believe in the power of a good skincare routine. Unless that routine is the blood of Christian babies! Yeah, people believe that. They still believe that. Thousands of Jews have been persecuted because of this blood libel conspiracy, despite the fact, and I should not have to say this, babies are not kosher. But it just goes to show that people believe the information they have access to, and scared people believe the information that soothes their fears. So, luckily I had the experience to debunk a lot of those conspiracies, but I was still scared. I needed more information. So I went to the next most reliable source, TV News. Which served me much of the same. But they had another layer. Not only is there a secret cabal of Jews, they said, but within it is an even more secreter, more caballer group. I thought, sounds promising, I could use friends. But the news went on. Not only is there a secreter, more caballer group of Jews, but they have a secret face. In the middle of a puberty I did not want and could not control, I looked in the mirror and I thought, I have a secret face. And the news went one step further. They said this secret Jewish face is reptilian. And being raised on Monster High dolls, I thought, yeah, I can work with that. And the news went even one step further. They said this secret Jewish group of reptilians, they control the weather. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with that one. That was not But I thought I could use a little more sunshine, a little less global warming. Yeah, don't worry, guys. The news says the reptilians are on top of it. But it wasn't just the news. I mean, my whole generation got raised to save the world. Something about having, all of human history at our fingertips 24/7, imminent climate disaster, and the people in charge just going, I'll be dead before I have to worry about it, really gave Gen Z this savior complex that I bought into. I mean, in the 2000s, teen movies were about high school bullying. In the 2010s, they were about overthrowing authoritarian dystopian regimes. Yeah, get the GED after the revolution, yeah. But there was something oddly comforting about that crackpot, conspiracy-brained rhetoric, because even if I was a monster with some secret, immense power. All I had to do was find my own underground cabal of reptilians. Which, how hard could it be, considering the press coverage? Luckily, I was born and raised in America, a land made by, of, and for the cults. But my high school history class considered AP prep was showing us National Treasure over and over again, where Nicolas Cage discovers the founding fathers were part of a secret group of elites obsessed with scavenger hunts. As opposed to the real founding fathers, who were a not very secret group of elites obsessed with, owning people. Yeah, maybe they'll cover that in the reboot? We'll get back to Disney. So, if it seems like I am stalling, you are absolutely right. The truth is, this next part is very embarrassing. I already feel like a walking Fox News headline, and I hate to give them free material. Those people work little enough as it is. I mean, my liberal arts college experience transed my gender and indoctrinated me into a communist cult. It practically writes itself. But I still want to talk about it because I believe each and every person will be in at least one cult in their lifetime. Some of them are just bigger and better organized than others. I mean, no one starts with the failed communist, right? People go to organized religion, the gender binary, sports. Yeah, not for me. But when you push people out of these socially acceptable cults, they go to the only place that will have them, and that is the dangerous part. So, on the morning I met my cult, I put on my suitably working class overalls and went to the farmer's market, aka Cult Central. Yeah, I mean, where else do the chess grandmasters, LARPers, and the Amish all find a free place? I somehow ended up in front of a table with the biggest red flag I had ever seen, literally, getting sold a newspaper. Show of hands, who has read a physical newspaper in the last year? Good for you! I was not one of them. In general, anyone handing out pieces of paper on the sidewalk does not have your best interests at heart. Learn the art of New York ignoring everyone. But I was young, I was naive, I was literate, I read the paper. And then I went to a meeting, and then before I knew it, I was the one standing on street corners passing out papers. Newsies did not prepare me very well. It turns out real life has a lot less tap dancing and a lot more getting cursed out by strangers. Needless to say, we did not sell a lot of papers. Correction, we sold a lot of papers to each other. See, how it worked was the people at the top wrote the paper, and then they sold it to the members as required reading for the meetings, where you learned how to sell more papers to recruit more members. Yeah. Classic MLM, that's multi-level Marxism. But what they were selling was the dream, right? I mean, here is my secret underground cabal, and they want me to save the world, but more importantly, they want me, the final boss of Fox News. But living a conservative nightmare was definitely not living a radical dream. What would it mean to shed that version of myself, along with a good portion of my hairline? I'm so sensitive about it. So, with the help of controlled substances, I finally decided to transition from scapegoat to man-scapegoat. And this time, when puberty grabbed me by the chest hairs and yanked, I happily went along for the ride. I truly believe evolving through the gender spectrum is one of the greatest gifts of my life. I mean, it gave me such perspective. Like watching a sunrise, or one of those little bird hatching montages narrated by David Attenborough. Observe the young tran, and it's, yes, I'm talking about you, in its natural habitat. See how it displays bright plumage to signal to its flock. I am calling you out right now. But the more I changed, the more the cults, the old fear-mongering about reptilians, all just stayed the same. I didn't fit in that world anymore. So I once again turned to the great traditions of my Jewish ancestors and fled the country. Technically, I studied abroad, which is the most inconvenient and expensive way to flee a country. But I will always be grateful for my time abroad, and depending how things go, might be grateful from abroad very soon. But the biggest cult of all in America, as I soon discovered, is America. So I just had to get out. Not that the French don't have their own version of gender roles. It's called gender brioche over there. About them gendering every single thing in existence also means they kind of gender nothing, which I found to be a big relief. I found this out the second night I was in France. I was attending the Cannes Film Festival. That's another annoying indie boy point for those playing along at home. Yeah! Which, like many a conservative arts tradition, has a very gendered, very binary dress code. Black tie, head to toe for every evening screening, no exceptions. You wear sneakers, you will be escorted off the premises, no questions asked. Yeah, leave it to the French to have bouncers for shoes. So, I was in line for my first evening screening, all dolled up in my new tuxedo, and I received a very important call from nature. Yeah. It was not good, but between me and the bathroom was the red carpet. Mars, you might be thinking, the red carpet, that's so exciting! The 35 people in front of me thought the exact same thing. So here I am, standing in line, watching everyone do their runway walks and their selfies and their poses, and with increasing pain in my bladder, I just prayed and waited. And finally, it was my red carpet debut, and I put the run in runway. I think the spirit of James Bond possessed me that night, because I had never run faster than I did in that tuxedo. It was pure masculine instinct. So I booked it to the bathroom and was washing my hands, silently congratulating myself, when the stall door opened on a woman in a ball gown. Yes, my pure masculine instinct had led me directly to the ladies' room, and she was just staring at me, aghast, and I could not for the life of me understand why. My first thought was, she's seen a reptilian. And then my second thought was, oh, it's the tux, which is far more shocking over there. But inside I hadn't felt any different. I'd just done what I had always done. It was the world that has changed its reaction to me so rapidly. But that was how I learned I had crossed the international gender line, and the last time I used a women's room, unfortunately. Things I've said. To be clear, if a bat mitzvah couldn't make me a woman, a bat room couldn't make me a man. I was close, but you know, no cigar, as they say. But at first, I loved manhood. I mean, it was so painless, mostly because I'd skipped the bris. Overnight, I was treated as handsomer, funnier. People even thought I was taller. Yeah, I cut off 2 inches of hair and I got 2 feet of height. No wonder why every single man in America is 6 foot tall. But I soon discovered the not-so-secret cabal of masculinity had far more strict rules than the cult I just left behind. Dress code, for instance. Forget Roy G. Biv. Roy will be in black, gray, or navy. If he's really flamboyant, red. But only once a week. All of a sudden, I didn't get emotional. I got angry. Anger is the one-size-fits-all response. Philly, where I'm from, is so notorious for this that before every major sports game, they grease the poles to prevent people climbing. Yeah, win or lose, some poor sap is out there with the world's largest stick of butter in a prayer. So all I'd learned to do was hide the other half of me from the male gaze. Not the male... Inside, I was just as scaly and as reptilian as ever, and with Donald Third Reich's the Charm Trump coming into power, it started to feel like reptilians were an endangered species. So, on the eve of the election, I sacrificed my tits to the gender gods in a dark and ancient ritual. Sorry, next time it'll be you. I was ready to feel comfortable in my body, to stop fucking up my back with compression garments. I don't know, try a sport. Yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know, when I first started this, I almost considered cutting that blood libel bit earlier because I didn't know if it would still land in 2025. And then a couple months ago, I went to go see the biggest monster movie of the year. And the villain was an old Eastern European man with a big nose and a hunchback and a penchant for sucking the blood out of Christian children. And my first thought was, Nosferatu stole my fucking joke! You know, I wrote this show because I thought if I just build a better monster, smarter, funnier, more likable monster, maybe I'll finally get through to people. But I've discovered that there's no new monsters. There's just same old powerful people selling the same old powerful fears. And what are we all buying? Compassion? In this economy, have you seen the eggs? Can I let you in on a secret? What? Yeah, don't tell my producer. I kind of sold them. But I wasn't a reptilian, you know, not villainous, duplicitous, conniving, not even scaly, except for the eczema, but that cleared up. And the doctor said it's perfectly normal for people of my age. I don't know what it means to be a monster, and I'm sure none of you do either, but I know I'm not one. I know people like me aren't monsters. Same way I know I'm not a woman, the same way I know I'm not into sports. Please, stop asking. What I do know is that living someone else's lie is way more miserable than living your own truth, no matter how strange that might be.